Hey friends, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Neil and I work at Bain as a consultant. In today's video, I sit down with a friend of mine, Gottfreid, and he has an incredibly special story. He recently just got accepted into McKinsey's associate position, and for those of y'all who don't know, that is McKinsey's post-MBA position where they normally recruit from elite business schools and look for people with 3 to 5 years of work experience. The special thing about Gottfreid is that he is not from an elite business school. He actually went to the same business school where I did my undergrad, and he has 0 years of traditional work experience. And so in the video, we talk about his background, his story, and also how he was able to do something that I consider pretty remarkable. He also left us with a challenge. He promised that if we could get 150 likes on this video, that he would come back onto the channel so that he could give us his advice for McKinsey's personal experience interview, their really tough behavioral style interview, which is even the reason I wasn't able to move forward in the process with McKinsey. So I hope you all enjoy the video. Make sure to give it a like so that we can get Gottfreid back on the channel, because as you'll see in a little bit, he is a treasure trove of good information and someone who we can learn a lot from. Hope you all enjoy. All right, everyone, before we dive into Gottfreid's story and how he was able to get into McKinsey from a non-target MBA program at UT Dallas, which is also where I went to school, I quickly just want to give you all context as to how we even got to know each other, which is kind of a funny story, at least in my opinion. One day I was scrolling through LinkedIn and then I saw his post. And in that post, he explained how he had gotten into McKinsey. And so I click on it because I'm like, I'm pretty happy whenever anyone gets into a big three because I know how hard it is. And then I see that he's from UTD, but not only from UTD, but from the MBA program. And I'm like, holy cow, like I need to talk to this guy. Partially because I know everyone who gets into the big three from UTD, but I had no clue who he was. And so I just wanted to get to meet him there. And then also too, get to understand his story and how he was able to do it. And so I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and then he agreed to, get lunch, and we just hung out, and we had a really good conversation. It lasted like 2 or 3 hours or something like that. And then he was awesome enough to check out the YouTube channel and then say like, hey, I'd love to talk to your audience, talk to your viewers about how he was able to get in. So here he is, telling us his story and giving y'all advice. And so we really appreciate it. So
thank you for the invitation, man.
Of course, man. So let's just dive in, Could you tell us a little bit about your background, your story, how you got to the schools that you went to, and then also eventually to interested in consulting?
Yeah, of course. Gotta start from the very beginning.
Perfect, yeah. Let's do it.
I was born in Angola, grew up in Venezuela, stayed there for a few years, and then went back to Angola for high school.
And I guess quick question there. I've never met anyone from Angola, much less someone who was born in Angola and raised in Venezuela. So like, how did that situation happen?
So yeah, my dad used to work in oil, so he was sent there essentially in a work mission. That's what they used to call them. But the president there, Hugo Chavez, at the time, he was a little wacko. He was the one that started pushing Venezuela to where it is today. So before all of that happened, we saw it coming, of course, and everyone else saw it coming. So we left the country and went back home. So did high school in Angola, got this amazing scholarship to come here to the US to study chemical engineering and biotechnology. The first stop was in Oklahoma to do my English test. So I said in Oklahoma, the English testing was at the University of Oklahoma. So I was like, okay, I like the school here. It's a nice campus. I like the people. I've made some friends. So I decided to stay at the University of Oklahoma and I pursued my degree there. So I think around junior year, fun story, I was walking in the house and my brother was sitting with a friend and we were discussing this idea about founding the startup in Angola. Essentially it was gonna be a company, a startup, to build the taxi delivery platform for Angola.
So like an Uber almost?
Yeah, like an Uber mixed, like an Uber Eats.
Okay, Uber Eats. Gotcha.
And it was basically the first one because there was nothing like that in Angola at the time. And I was hearing them like pitching the idea, discussing a little bit, and I just interjected and was like, this is not gonna work. And then of course I started explaining to them why it wasn't gonna work, and the main reason was because Angola didn't have a digital payment system. So there was no way to make electronic payments. So if you can make electronic payments, kind of takes away some of the convenience from having an app to call a taxi or an app to deliver food.
Totally.
So we decided to actually go ahead and pursue that, and that's how they included me in the team. And we founded what we called K4 Technologies, or K4 Pay. And K just meant the Angolan currency Kwanza, so Kwanza for Pay. Luckily, the friend that we're working with his dad is one of the biggest entrepreneurs in Angola. He was very well connected and he was willing to give us access to those connections. So we had the opportunity to sit down and meet with venture capitals, angel investors, family offices. We worked with some amazing advisors. I think the interesting part was every time I walked in the room and I gave a pitch, they would always ask me, aren't you a chemical engineer? I was like, yeah, I guess I am. I guess so. So very fun. We're able to raise some capital. We had some pitches. We pitched the project to some of the largest banks in Angola. Very interesting, fun experience. But the degree of bureaucracy that exists in Angola is just ridiculous. Okay. We would send an email to a bank and it would take them 6 months to respond. So that's crazy. Yeah, I kind of realized that I needed some additional time. So it was during my senior year, close to finals, and I decided to pursue an MBA just to get some additional time, stay in the US longer. So at the same time I was prepping for finals, I was also prepping for the GMAT. By the time I took the GMAT, most deadlines for the vast majority of MBA programs had already passed. UTD was there, of course, among other schools as well. And I applied, got accepted, got really good scholarships. So
that's awesome. Nice.
So it was like UTD is the place to go then. And that's how I ended up in UTD. So summary, started in Angola, grew up in Venezuela, came to the US for undergrad, founded a startup, liked the experience, wanted additional time, so decided to pursue the MBA.
And so then you get to the MBA, and then how, because you haven't mentioned consulting yet, so I'm curious, I'm guessing the MBA is where you first got your exposure or your strong interest in consulting?
Yes, the MBA, not just at UTD, I believe just in general, they love consulting. Consulting pays well, so if their students are getting well paid, their rankings go up, so they all love consulting. So the second you walk in the door, consulting is all you're gonna hear. And of course, I found it very interesting. It kind of aligned with some of the stuff I was doing. It seemed like just a fun thing to do. So I was like, okay, I think I dig it.
Mm-hmm. So then from the time you come in and kind of get consulting thrown into your face, what do you do to then figure out that that's something that you actually wanted to pursue? You know, like how did that thought process go about? And then once you got there, we'd be curious to hear how you actually prepared and went about networking and getting better at casing and all that.
Yeah, of course. So to answer the first question, I think it's a great exercise for everyone to do is really just doing some introspection. Just sitting down and asking yourself, what am I good at? So I spent a lot of time asking myself that question. What am I good at? What am I strong at? And what am I weak at? And honestly, focus on what you're strong at. You know, you can only get so good on what you're weak at. Yes, you want to cover those weaknesses, but you really want to exploit what you're good at. Yeah. So after doing that, I realized I was really good at building connections, building relationships from scratch, and just problem solving and developing things. So I was like, consulting really aligns with that experience, aligns with everything I've been doing in the past, and would also provide me the opportunity to meet some very amazing people. Some people may say it's not fun, but I actually think the problem solving work is really fun. I enjoy it. So I was like, I want to do something I'm good at, and I want to do something that's fun. And that's how I decided that I really wanted to pursue consulting. And then as Neil said, UTD is not a target school, so we really don't have many alumni to rely on. Not that huge infrastructure that's just a pipeline for people into consulting, so there was a lot of legwork that I had to do. UTD does have a consulting program, but it starts in the spring. So if you're trying to apply for internships,
it's not going to work because you need to work. You need to apply in the fall, right?
Yeah. So, and then going to the second point, how to get prepared, I think the thing most people miss is they want to get into consulting, but they don't want to put the work to get into consulting. So there's a lot of work that needs to be put. And the way to do it is really understanding what consulting entails. You get that by honestly doing some research. Google it, go to their website.
Watching the channel,
of course. Go to Reddit. I found Reddit to be a really great resource. Figure out what exactly does consulting mean, and look at your previous experience and see, okay, where does it align, where does it not align? So for me, I was coming from undergrad, no conventional work experience, which made it even harder as an MBA. And I was asking myself, okay, what am I missing? I was like, well, I'm missing that, essentially that verification, that stamp of approval that I understand what the work entails, that I can do the work. So the question to me was, how can I get there? How can I take that step? And it was, well, first I gotta get an awesome internship. And second, I decided to co-found what we call the Consulting Leadership and Development Society, which essentially is a platform that's providing students at UTD the opportunity to apply what they're learning in schools, and then also provide the businesses with, honestly, talent from UTD to help them tackle some of the most strategic initiatives or problems.
Gotcha.
And that essentially would give me the opportunity to work. And it's really, really high level work that we were doing. So there was a really nice experience. I learned a lot from it. I worked with some very awesome people. And that kind of helped fill the gap a little bit. And then, of course, I also got the amazing opportunity to do an MBA internship at Microsoft. And that also kind of put the stamp of approval there that gave me the next step. But even with all of that, if you're applying to the Big Four, sure, that would be enough. But if you're applying to the MBA, to the Big Three, you're gonna need a little bit more, because for them, they really want to see that it's something that you really want. And just to give some additional perspective, McKinsey, for example, you get in as a business analyst, and then you had to go do your MBA before you could come back as an associate.
Right.
But they did some introspection and they realized that the business analysts were actually as good as the incoming associates. And they were more likely to stay through partners, because most MBAs, they go in, they stay 2 years, they call it quits, they leave, they go somewhere else. So they actually scrapped that program, and now they're promoting the top business analysts straight into associate without having to go do an MBA. So I think that probably also kind of helped, because in their eyes, they probably saw me, okay, let's just see him as a business analyst, but he has the MBA, doesn't have the work experience, the conventional work experience, but has the MBA. So kind of the same thing. And then, of course, a referral. Referral is going to take you a long, long way.
Interesting.
Through the pro bono activity, and then just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, it works.
Yeah.
I can tell it works. You just got to figure out who to reach out to.
Yeah.
If you reach out to associates or engagement managers, they're probably not going to help you. If you reach out to associate partners and partners, you may be a little bit more lucky with that.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting, because actually from my experience at Bain, I've kind of come to the opposite conclusion that Gottfreid had, which is that if I'm advising people to reach out to people within Bain, I would most likely recommend that they reach out to associate consultants, which is the same thing as business analysts at McKinsey, but associate consultants at Bain, or maybe consultants, but stay away from managers or partners because they're going to be a little bit busier. But I think it really just depends on who you're able to get in contact with and who you naturally come across in your, internship experiences or on your LinkedIn or through family, friends, or however it might be, right?
And I think the main thing is really finding a connection.
Yeah.
So I sent a message to a lot of people, and the person that ended up responding, he sat on the board on one of the companies, one of the nonprofits that my pro bono platform did a project for.
So that's how you were able to get his connection.
Yeah. So essentially, when I messaged him, I was like, "Hey, I work with the Dallas Entrepreneur Center. I see you sit on the board. I would love to get into consulting. Can we chat?" And there was that immediate connection. And if you think about it, partners, they're a little bit older than your associate, than your business analyst. They've been there for a while. They love to see young talent. It inspires them. It makes them feel young again. I don't know. Yeah. They feel happy about helping young talent. And then if you have what it takes, and they see that you have the motivation to get there, and you have the skills to get there, they'll be willing to help. Not saying that an associate or a business analyst won't, but a referral from a partner, it's gonna wait a lot.
They own the business, right?
Yeah,
they're partners in the business. Okay, so that makes sense. So I guess to quickly recap, it sounds like you had to both get a stamp on your resume. So by doing the Microsoft internship, you had to get more of a consulting background or consulting experience, which is why you started that pro bono consulting platform at UTD. And then you also kind of pulled some strings, worked your butt off to network well. And so you were able to find this connection with a partner at McKinsey who sits on the board of one of the companies that your pro bono platform helped out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of gives us a good picture of how you went about preparing while you were in the MBA. And that's even advice that y'all could do, if you have time to get good internships, if you have time to join consulting clubs, or really anything that can show that you're a good problem solver, an energetic, young, smart person, then I would recommend that would be something that you'd want to look towards if you have a couple of years to prepare. But I guess, so you get to this point, Gottfreid, and now, I'm assuming after all of this, you finally get the interview, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was a lot of work you had to do on the casing side. So could you talk a little bit about how you went about case prepping, how many cases you ran, and any advice you might have as it relates to people who want to go about case prepping in their future?
Yes, of course. I'd say casing at first it looks like a monster. It kind of is a monster,
Totally,
but it's a skill that you can develop. I've like helped a lot of people practice, and at the beginning they always get a little scared. They're like, "Oh, this is too hard. I'm not getting it." And I'll tell them it takes practice. You gotta have to do a lot of cases. In general, I'd say do 50 to 75 cases. It sounds like a big number, but it's the optimal number. It's gonna allow you to learn the most just about casing in general. And I think the really cool thing about casing, it helps you understand businesses in a different way. Like I got to understand a lot about businesses just from doing cases. And I think that's really cool. So I advise anyone do 50 to 75 cases. I think to date, I've done probably 100 cases.
Oh, wow.
I've done a lot of cases. Yes, I've gone through a lot of case books. I don't think I kind of ran out of case books, so I can't case anymore. And the cool thing about it is during my interview, 2 of the cases I got were very, very similar to cases I had done before.
That's fantastic.
So that was very easy for me because I already knew what I had to say. I knew everything about the case. So that's why you want to case a lot, because first you're training that casing muscle, you're learning more about business, and odds are in your actual interview you're gonna get a similar case.
Yeah. I guess the only thing that I'd want to add to what Gottfreid is saying about casing is that I agree. You definitely need to do a lot of cases to get good at it. Of course, the specific number is going to vary per person. I think for me, my number was closer to 50 or 60, so well within his 50 to 75 range, but not nearly as much as 100 cases. And of course, when you say the 50 to 75, or when I say the 50 to 60, that's both cases that we give other people and also receive. Because you being the interviewer for a case is almost as good, if not better in some situations, than you receiving the case, because you get to see what it means to be an interviewer, what looks good, what looks bad to an interviewer. So that's one thing that I wanted to say. And then the other thing is, of course, like, the way that you prepare will be different based on your backgrounds. We both come from engineering backgrounds, so the business terminology, the business skills, the business acumen might have been something that we might not have been as good at, but maybe the math might have been easier for us. So you just need to make sure that you tailor your consulting case prep process to what is your strengths or weaknesses, kind of like what Gottfreid was saying way earlier in the video. But anyway, so is there anything else you'd want to add to your casing process or anything like that?
And to the casing process, case with different people. I see some people, they have like that one case partner and they just practice with that person. I'm like, don't do that. You're gonna get stuck in your mistakes essentially. You gotta go outside of the box. Essentially why people hire consultants, to get a third perspective. So you wanna go get a third perspective, get other people to case with. Case with friends, they're also prepping for consulting. Case with friends that are already in consulting, have gone through that process. And I'd say honestly start with someone that has gone through the process, because you don't want to have bad habits, because it's really, really hard to get rid of bad habits when it comes to casing.
Mm-hmm. So then how do you recommend, because one thing that I was conscious of when I was casing is, especially when I was just starting out and was really bad, I didn't want to waste people's time. So how do you think people should navigate balancing both like getting good enough at casing so that they're not wasting someone's time or showing that they haven't put in the work, but then also not waiting too long to where they develop too many bad habits? How did you navigate doing that?
I'd say start with Case in Point.
Really?
I don't know if you've read Case in Point.
I actually never read Case in Point, to be honest.
It's a great book, a great resource. Don't get stuck in its framework, but just read it to get the perspective and the understanding how a case interview works. Second thing I did, I had this resource of different videos or tapings, recordings of people doing cases, like actual case interviews.
Which you can find more on our channel, right? Rohit and I have several on our channel, and we'll probably have more by the time you're watching this video. So make sure to check those out, because those are probably, in my opinion, some of the highest quality casing videos where you can pause along and do the case yourself as we're doing it in the video. But yeah, so that's your second point.
And you want to do that after you read Case in Point, because then you're going to be listening for different things. You know exactly what to listen for.
Gotcha.
And after that, then you can practice a little bit with some friends. And after you feel just a tiny bit confident, go to a friend that's a consultant. They're going to rip you apart. But that's good. Take their advice. Go practice with your friends again. Do some team cases with your friend. Go back to someone that's a consultant. And just keep doing that process until you really get it. Some things, for me, I had to put like some sticky notes on my computer, my notebook, of like things I kept forgetting during the case, because it's very easy to forget and just get lost in the case. And of course, just keep doing it until it becomes like a natural thing to do. So just summarizing it again is really read Case in Point or any book about casing to understand the framework. Watch some recordings, go to Neil's YouTube channel, watch those videos, listen for the right things, go practice with your friends, and then find a consultant that can help you run a case or two.
So now we've heard a little bit about Gottfreid's background, how he got interested in consulting, and then once he got interested, how he was able to successfully pursue it and then get an offer at McKinsey despite all of the things we talked about, coming from a non-target background and all of that kind of stuff. But Gottfreid, if you had to leave the viewers with some piece of advice as they look to do something that you were able to do, which is get into the big three, what would you say?
Yeah, so 3 things. I'll first cite them and then we'll go over them.
Perfect. So, like a good consultant.
Put in the work, much work as you possibly can. Second thing, know what you're good at. And third thing, network. So putting in the work, don't think of yourself in a vacuum. There's always competition. There's gonna be other people applying. So you have to make sure you're at least a competitive candidate. And I mean at the very least a competitive candidate. And the only way you're gonna be a competitive candidate is if you're putting in the work. So second thing, knowing what you're good at. You have to be able to sell yourself to the interviewer, to the partner, to the associate that's interviewing you. And the only way you can effectively do that is if you know what you're good at when you're writing your resume, if you know what you're good at when you're applying, if you know what you're good at when you're going through the actual interview. And lastly, and most importantly, network. Put in the work, go out, talk to people. You're probably gonna be ignored a few times, boo-hoo. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
As long as the end result is you getting that invitation for the interview, and nothing else really matters. So 3 things, put in the work, know what you're good at, network. And I'm sure you're gonna be able to get there. And for networking, Neil has an amazing video about networking. Go watch it.
Sweet, I was just gonna say that, so I appreciate it, thanks man. Those are 3 pieces of amazing advice, so I hope y'all were taking notes. If not, I mean, it's a video, so you can always replay it, but appreciate it a lot, Gottfreid. For y'all, if you appreciate the effort that we're putting in to make these videos, and also Gottfreid being able to take his time on a break to help make this video, please give it a like, comment below what you think, and if there's any questions you'd wanna ask, he'll of course be in the comment section answering questions, as well as Rohit and myself like normal. And then lastly, if you want to reach out to Gottfreid, feel free to do so on LinkedIn. But if you're going to reach out to him or me or Rohit on LinkedIn, make sure to include a note, either saying what you liked about the videos or what you'd like to see in the future. And that'll be the best way for you to guarantee that you can connect with us. If you just send us a connection request, we're probably going to ignore it, just FYI. So send a note and we'll see y'all next video.